my Legally Fitness series, and we are going to discuss employees and independent contractors. Before I get into that, a couple things. One, I really tried hard to think of like a more creative way to get you guys this information, but right now this is what's working the best. I have a really short week and I wanted to be consistent with my content, so rather than try and think of some crazy creative way to talk about independent contractors, I figured I'm going to keep it simple, do what I've been doing, and get this out to you by Monday. So today is Wednesday. I leave for New York for the Pardomus workshop tomorrow. My dog just had surgery, so I apologize if I seem a little distracted, but I really just want to get this content to you so that it is timely. I am super excited to be going to the Pardomus workshop this weekend. I'm going to speak and it's going to be a really good time. We have another one coming up in Charlotte in a few weeks. So if it is something you're interested in doing, please go check it out online. It is bpardomus.com/workshops, and I would super love to see you guys there. So next disclaimer, as always, this video is intended to be legal information, not legal advice. Although I am an attorney, I am licensed here in the state of Florida. I am not your attorney. So please do not take this as legal advice or things that I'm saying you should do, because I don't know you and I don't know your specific situation. So hopefully we are at the point where your fitness business is starting to see some success and you need to hire some people to help you do pretty much everything. Many people want to hire employees and many just want to hire independent contractors, but hiring isn't really as easy as you might think. There are quite a few things you need to consider when determining whether you want an employee or an independent contractor. The biggest ones being how you're going to pay taxes on those people, and of course ensuring that you aren't violating anything like the FLSA or other state or federal regulations regarding employment. But whether you want to hire an employee or an independent contractor is a big business decision, and you are going to have to make it at some point. Today, we are going to talk about independent contractors, what makes somebody an independent contractor, and how you know whether or not that's right for you. It is important that you classify your employees correctly. There are major penalties, both tax-wise and fines, all kinds of stuff that you can incur for misclassification of the people who work for you. So if you are intending to hire somebody as an independent contractor, meaning you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to pay Social Security or withhold anything from their paychecks, then you really want to make certain that you are doing the right things to ensure those people are considered independent contractors. We're going to go ahead and just start with the basics. So what is an independent contractor? Generally, the IRS just says that the main thing to look at is the amount of control that an employer exerts over a worker. So if an employer has the ability to control when and how the work is done, then that person's going to be an employee. And if you don't really have the control over how anything is actually done, you just have control over the actual end product, then that person's probably an independent contractor. In the fitness industry, we see independent contractors used a lot in personal training, but also as a fitness business, you may have hired independent contractors for things like web design or creation of marketing materials, or just a graphic designer in general to help come up with a logo, things like that, where you weren't necessarily telling them what materials to use or what program to use in coming up with the design, but you were in charge of the end product. Often people assume that if you hire somebody to work for you and that person already has a business, then you're hiring them as an independent contractor, and that's just not always the case. Just because a gym hires a personal trainer who has their own personal training business doesn't necessarily mean that that person is an independent contractor within the realms of your working relationship. So why is this a big deal? Well, from an IRS perspective, it's critical that business owners correctly determine what classification their employee or independent contractor is. Because if it is an employee, like I mentioned, there are certain things you have to withhold tax-wise. Also, the FLSA and other regulations will determine how much that person can work, whether or not they're owed overtime, whether or not they get paid vacations, things along those lines. There are a lot of different factors considered in determining whether someone is an independent contractor. I'm gonna go over the 3 main ones that the IRS uses, and then about 6 or 7 main ones that the FLSA uses, and generally state regulations are very similar to these big ones here, although it is going to be super fact specific when looking at your case, which is why if you're struggling with whether or not someone is an employee or an independent contractor, I would reach out to an attorney in your state and give them the facts of your scenario so that they can tell you whether or not you're paying that person correctly or you've classified them correctly. The IRS has three factors that they look at. The first one being behavioral. Does the company or the business have control or the right to control what the worker does and how they do it? If they do, most likely an employee. The next factor is financial. Are the business aspects of the worker's job controlled by the employer or the payer? This is going to include things like reimbursements, equipment to actually get the work done, how is the worker paid. Basically, if you supply somebody with everything they need to do a job that you've hired them to do, they're probably going to be an employee. If you have provided them with, vacation pay, they're going to be an employee, not an independent contractor. And then finally, the IRS says the type of relationship is very important. So are there written contracts? Do you have an employment contract? If you do, probably not an independent contractor, so go ahead and pay those taxes on that person. Does the employee have benefits at all? Like I said, paid vacation, pension, insurance, anything along those lines? Going to be an employee, not an independent contractor. So keep those things in mind. The next guidelines we're going to look at come from the FLSA, which governs a lot with employment. If you want to look up the FLSA, they actually have a really great website where you can go and figure out all kinds of really good stuff as far as if you're due overtime, if you should have medical leave, if you should get maternity leave, a lot of stuff like that. The FLSA covers that. And they also have some really great guidelines for you to determine whether someone is an independent contractor or not. We're going to start with their first, which is the extent to which the services this person is providing you are integral to your business. If you are a gym owner and you have hired somebody to do a painting or a mural on one of your walls in your warehouse gym, that person is doing this beautiful artwork, but that artwork is probably not integral to your business of gym ownership. So they're probably going to be an independent contractor. Are you hiring a coach that is going to be there every single day, that's going to manage how things are done, that's going to bring people into the gym, that is in charge of marketing? That's pretty integral to your business, and I'm gonna say probably an employee. The next factor that they look at is the permanency of the relationship. Is this something that's really long-term? Can you say, I'm bringing you on and I want you here with me on the team for 2 years, and then, we'll discuss things. It's pretty long-term, probably an employee, not an independent contractor. The next factor is the amount that this worker has. Oh, and by the way, I'm saying worker instead of employee because I don't want you to get confused. So worker is the person that you've hired to do the work for you. So the third factor from the FLSA is the amount that the worker has invested in their tools, programs, supplies, anything that they need to accomplish the goal that they have been hired to accomplish. If they provide most of that and they take on those costs, more likely than not, they're going to be an independent contractor based on that factor. If you give them a computer and an email address and a desk to have at their house, even if they're not working in your office, probably more likely that they're going to seem like an employee. The fourth thing to consider is the nature and degree of control that you have over that person. So this is really like the main crux of it. And basically, are you just controlling the end result, or are you controlling how and when and what that person does for you? So if you tell somebody, you're a personal trainer for me, but I need you at the gym from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I need you to train at least 10 people a day. I need you to do 30-minute sessions. That's exerting a lot of control over that person, and most likely that person's going to be an employee. If you just say, hey, yeah, come train at my gym, you don't tell them when they need to be there, you don't tell them how many clients they need to have, that's more likely an independent contractor situation. Depending on how much control you want to have over somebody is going to determine whether or not you want to make them an employee or an independent contractor. Another great example would be, let's say you are an influencer and you want to write an ebook, but you don't know anything about graphic design. So you've hired a graphic designer to help you put together the pages and help you set up on your website how you're going to sell it and all of that. That relationship is probably going to be an independent contractor relationship unless you tell that person. So even though it's virtual and you never meet this person and they live in a totally different state than you tell that person, hey, I need you on the computer at 7 a.m. and we are working from 7 to 11. And then I need you to use Adobe Photoshop instead of whatever program that person's used to using. Even if you've called them an independent contractor, but you're putting those parameters on how they do the work for you, that is most likely going to be considered an employee relationship. All right, so another factor the FLSA uses, if you go online and you Google these, this one's a little confusing. So straight from the FLSA website, it is the worker's opportunities to profit or loss. What does that mean, right? So if a person is an independent contractor, they're going to have the ability to go out there in the marketplace and search for more jobs similar to the job that you have hired them to do. If they're an employee, they won't necessarily have that opportunity. Also, does the person working for you have the opportunity to gain more employment from you or to earn more money by finishing a job early or by being very efficient in their work? If so, probably an independent contractor. As an employee, you aren't really incentivized to get all of the work done early because there isn't really ever an end, right? Even though you may have been hired to do a project, an employee doesn't necessarily have this ability to get something done and then try and take on another project because they just get paid to work, so they're salaried. I mean, that's going to be another factor. Is this person salaried? That's most likely going to be an employee. The fifth factor from the FLSA is going to be the amount of initiative, judgment, or foresight in open market competitions with others. Okay, so that's directly from the FLSA website as well, and that is like the most governmental legal jargon language that they could possibly have come up with. But all that means is, does the worker have the ability to advertise their business to make more money, gain more clients, and influence these factors? If they do, great, that means they're an independent contractor. If they don't, probably more of an employee. And the last factor that I want you to consider is the degree of independent business organization management or operation. Another one of those really intense sounding things, right? And all that means is, does this person operate as their own business? Do they have their own name, their own tax EIN? Do they have their own LLC or corporation set up? Are they providing the service to other people while they're providing the service to you? So this isn't always a shoe-in. As I mentioned earlier, just because you hire somebody who already has their own business set up doesn't mean that you can't misclassify them. You most certainly can, but it is a factor that's going to lend to the belief that that person is an independent contractor. And just for the record, you can't hire somebody and then say, hey, you know what, I need you to start your own company so that you can be an independent contractor and not an employee, and I don't have to pay taxes on you, because that's just not how that works. Again, these factors from the FLSA and also from the IRS, there really isn't one that is going to say yes or no, this person is classified correctly. It's really going to be a totality of the circumstances. The law is going to take into account the whole entire scenario and your whole entire process as to your relationship with your worker. Businesses need to weigh all the factors when determining whether a worker is an employee or an independent contractor so that you don't run into the issues that I mentioned earlier. And again, there's really no magic number. If you hit all of those factors or if you hit one, you still may have an independent contractor and not an employee. So the keys are going to be, look at the entire relationship, consider the degree and extent of control you have over that person. Really lay it out there with some documents. If you really want an independent contractor, you've gone through all these factors and say, you know what, this person is an independent contractor, document that, go ahead and get it written out and have it signed by both parties, and that will just reinforce the fact that this person is being treated as an independent contractor and not an employee. If you decide that independent contractor really isn't your route and you want to hire employees, then go ahead and get that in writing too. You're going to get everything in writing. I don't know if I've mentioned in my Legally Fit series yet how important contracts are, but they are the most important. So if you have an employee, you're going to get that in writing as well, establishing the relationship as an employer-employee relationship and outlining exactly what you're going to do for that employee and what they are going to do for you. So if you have questions on employee-employer contracts and or independent contractor contracts, feel free to leave a comment below. But as a little shameless plug, I am currently sort of trying to work on an ebook that's going to go over contracts that I think every business needs to have. those two will be included, and I'm going to include a draft for you to use of either the independent contractor or an employment contract. So be on the lookout for that. But again, if you have questions regarding what clauses need to be in there, how to write that, and how to set that up, feel free to comment below and let me know. There are other considerations when hiring an independent contractor that I think are important for you to go over before making the decision. When you hire independent contractors, there are some contracts that I think you definitely need to have in place before doing so, and that you need to have your independent contractor sign before you start working with that person. Again, these are things that I'm going to go over in my ebook. So the first one is going to be, I definitely think you need to have some confidentiality agreements in place that protect your intellectual property and of course your trade secrets, how you do business, how you manage things. All of that, you need to write it out. You need to write what's confidential and what this person can and cannot use outside of their work with you. These are just really important to keep the independent contractor from going out there in the business and telling other people how you run your business. In certain states, you can have a non-compete agreement signed by that independent contractor. I've mentioned before, they are not allowed in California, to my understanding, and there are probably other states where they're not allowed. I know they are allowed here in Florida, and if you do want to get a non-compete signed, I don't think it's a bad idea. This just provides that the worker isn't allowed to compete with the employer's business after they're terminated. It just means that they've done some work for you and now they can't go work for your competitor. There are obviously going to be rules based on how long that can last. There are geographical limitations on that as well. So just look that up in your state where you are, or contact an attorney regarding non-compete agreements where you live. And then finally, I suggest having some kind of non-solicitation or non-recruiting agreement. And this just means that your independent contractor, you can even have these with employees, but this just states that they will not try to poach your employees and start the exact same business elsewhere. So all of those contracts you can definitely have with your employees as well, but for sure, get them done with your independent contractors. I hope that kind of clears up for you the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. If you are struggling to decide how you want to classify somebody, let me know. I have a great checklist that goes over whether or not you're best suited for an independent contractor or an employee relationship with somebody. So I'd be happy to share that with you. If you have any questions about anything that I discussed today, feel free to comment below, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe, and stay tuned for more legal fitness in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and maybe I will see you at one of the Pardomus workshops here in the near future. Thanks, guys.